Hello everybody. We shall discuss organizing guidance program. To make the guidance program effective and beneficial to children, parents and others, it is necessary to organize guidance program systematically. Let us see how to organize the guidance program. Number 1, prerequisites for organizing guidance program. Ensuring the availability of adequate system of collecting and recording child's data, including the progress report card, information blank, performer for collecting sociometric data, performer for reporting anecdotal records. In this arrangement for obtaining the support of parents and introducing them to the idea of guidance. Briefing the school staff about need and importance of guidance and getting their support. Arranging for budget provision for expenditure to be incurred, if any, for correspondence, payment of honorarium, conveyance to specialists like doctors, psychologists, educationists. Now, second one, planning the guidance program. A guidance program will be effective if it is planned on early basis. Planning of activities should include reporting, schedule for parents conference and sending report cards, schedule for collecting children's data through various non-testing techniques, definite program for orientation meeting for parents of new entrants, program for orienting new contracts in all the grades in smaller groups of 5 to 10 is mandatory. Creating a guidance committee consisting of head of the institution, parents and teachers. This group can be drawn from the members of parent teacher association. Arrangement for parents visit to school, teachers visit to home and utilization of parents as resources. Now, how to implement the guidance program? In that, number 1, orientation talk. Orientation talk to parents of all the fresh students should be organized. The talk should include rules and regulation of the school like timings, uniform, holidays, etc. The talk should be given in small groups. Parents along with their wards may be taken around the school to show headmistress, principal's room, staff room, sports room, library if exist, playfield and other important places which parents should be familiar with. Orientation talk to parents about school should include history or tradition, rules or regulation, uniform, fees, examination or evaluation system, promotion, policy, facilities available, holidays, etc. Parents should also be briefed about the availability of guidance program. Talks by experts like doctors, psychologists, educationists may be arranged for school teachers for promoting better understanding of needs and problems of children and also for arranging remedial programs in the school. Now, second one, collection of children data through non-testing techniques. School should obtain detailed information about children through the use of information blank, rating scales, autobiography, sociometry, etc. Information blank may be used in the beginning of school or at the time of admission. Since children are so small, it is advisable that teachers may talk to children and parents and then fill up the information blank. The information blank should be given to all children who are taking fresh admissions to school, whether the admission is to first standard or second standard, third standard, fourth standard, or fifth standard. Collecting information through autobiographies can be done in the third, fourth, and fifth standards, the stage in which they will be able to write few words or sentences. One can obtain the help of other teachers narrating children on different personality traits using a rating scale. Only such teachers who have sufficient knowledge about children should be involved. Data on rating scales can be obtained anytime during or at the end of the academic year. Sociometric test may be used in the middle of the academic year, by which time children might have had sufficient time and opportunities to interact with each other. There cannot be any time schedule for collecting anecdotal reports. This may be done as and when teachers make some significant observations. Now, third one, filling cumulative record card. In short, it is called as CR. As and when data is obtained, the same should be recorded in the cumulative record card. Data regarding achievement, rating on personality traits, attendance, etc. may be recorded at the end of the year. As far as filing cumulative record, it is desirable that one teacher should be responsible for one section of the class. The class has more than one section. However, he or she may collect information from teacher on different aspects. Judgment or classification of children in certain personality category on the basis of supposedly standardized test can prove harmful. Labeling children in this or that category on the basis of tests or inadequate observation should be avoided. Now, fourth one, group guidance activities. Talks to small groups of children of 4th and 5th grades on given topics such as how to include reading habits, simple techniques of memorizing, and concentration. Children can also be informed about the ways of improving writing habits. These small group talks should be followed by individual help. These activities should be carried out at least twice a year, once in the beginning and another after mid-term examination. Parents may also be involved for supplementing assistance. Let us see some of the possible ways Conference with teachers. Guidance oriented head teacher should discuss and familiarize teachers with respect to different needs and problems of children. They may be familiarized with the various non-testing techniques like sociometric devices, autobiography, anecdotal records, etc. for collecting valuable information about children. Other professionals like psychologists, people from medical profession, educationists, and even experienced teachers may be invited to discuss issues relating to children. Second point, conference with the parents. Discussion should be arranged with the parents under the banner of Parent Teacher Association if it exists in school. Class wise meeting may be arranged so that the issue to be discussed can be more specific to that particular class. Only issues of common interest to parents, such as how parents could help their child with respect to school subjects, problems relating to attendance, homework, etc., may be discussed. Class wise meetings should lead to individual discussion with the parents regarding their children specific problems as well as their achievements. For this particular days in a year may be fixed. Now, mobilizing resources for guidance program. Let us see how to mobilize the resources for guidance program. Guidance to be effective must be a cooperative effort in which various persons from within the school and outside the school should be involved. The success of the program depends on the ability of the guidance worker to mobilize the services of others. Now, let us see what are the school resources available. Principal, headmistress can provide a suitable administrative environment and also obtain support from the local community. Teachers with their daily contacts with school children can provide initial information regarding child's attitude, interest, ability, fear, aspiration, etc. Teachers' assistance is required in administering, scoring, and interpreting the child's data collected through non-testing techniques and in maintaining cumulative record card. Community resource. Community agencies such as primary health centers, hospitals, professional groups like doctors, psychologists, and educationists, social service agencies like Lions and Rotary clubs, and big industrial houses are valuable resources. They can offer valuable assistance to meet the needs of the school for the successful implementation of the guidance program. Some of them can provide financial assistance and some can spend their valuable time with teachers and children in discussing their problems. Assistance in probable remedial measures. Even parents can be involved in these activities. In order to make use of community resources effectively and to save time and energy in locating them, it is advisable to maintain the list and nature of assistance that can be availed of from such agencies. Now the thing is, we have also discussed different services such as orientation, inventory, information, counseling, placement and evaluation. While discussing different techniques of collecting information, we have tried to emphasize the use of non-testing techniques like observation, anecdotal record, autobiography, sociometric devices for collecting information for understanding the needs and problems of growing children. We have also talked about the guidance programs which can be implemented in schools. These are the very important points to be remembered because guidance cell is a very active cell and requires lot of efforts by the teachers, and it is a joint venture both the teachers and students. Now let us see the needs and the problems of elementary school children. Why the guidance is so need, and what are the problems of elementary school children, and to solve those problems, what is the need? What are the needs to solve those problems? Young children at the elementary school stage interact continuously with the environment, ranging from home to school and to neighborhood and through the media to the global environment. Society needs children as citizens to respond effectively and responsibly to the optimum the extent of their abilities in their surroundings. From the standpoint of the needs of society, it is important to organize for the child an appropriate curriculum in which no one area of learning receives overemphasis at the expense of others. Teachers and parents are expected to understand children regarding their developmental needs and the probable problems arising out of the ignorance of parents and teachers to meet these needs. They should also be aware of the importance of providing the conducive environment to children for their optimum development. The understanding of needs and problems will help in planning activities at home and school for promoting physical, intellectual, social, and emotional development of children. Let us take physical and health problems. The normal development of child, whether it is educational, social, or emotional, gets affected by the child's physical conditions. Low academic achievement, learning disability, or intellectual backwardness may be the result of defective hearing, defective speech, poor sight, or lack of sleep. Children labeled by teachers as inattentive, lazy, disinterested, or dull would definitely improve if teachers and parents recognize the physical deficiency and also plan some action to help such children. The improvement in the general health of the child is likely to result in increase in the child's motivation, happiness and interest in school and other activities. The teachers and parents should be familiar with the normal habits of their child's age group and should be observant enough to detect any deviation from the behaviors that are usually expected. Watching children in play fields who have problems in running, jumping, throwing, or catching is one way of identifying disabilities. Attention also should be given to children who show signs of abnormality like drowsiness, headache, paleness, sneezing, coughing, bad breath, discharging of watery eyes, sore throat, etc. These children require some medical help which could be provided by the school. If such facility exists, or parents could approach local doctors. Now, second point, defective vision. Children having visual problems often show academic backwardness, emotional disturbance, and lack of social adjustment. It is not difficult for teachers and parents to detect children with short sightedness, long sightedness, squint eyes, color blindness, etc. One would suspect poor vision when a child shows lack of interest in work requiring good eyesight, confuses similar objects of different colors, screws up his or her eyes when trying to focus on words or objects, holds his or her book too close or too far from his or her face. He is unable to differentiate figures and letters in reading and spelling. Complaints of blurred images, headache and fatigue of eyes. Children having these types of problems should be taken to doctor or eye specialist for medical help. Teachers could help such children by making suitable seating arrangements so that he or she gets good light without glare, giving less writing work, and conducting more of oral examinations. Next point, hearing difficulties. A child with a hearing defect is at a major disadvantage in normal social interactions. Hearing defect may become the cause for dullness and inattention, and he or she may be blamed for not obeying instruction or orders from parents and teachers. One could suspect hearing problems when a child fails to score in oral examination, fails to answer when questioned, commits errors in carrying out instructions, leans forward when somebody speaks to him or her, turns his or her head to one side when listening, speaks in usually loud or weak voice, or consistently withdraws from the group. One could screen such children by holding a watch close to each ear in turn. Ear. Ear means an organ. A child with normal hearing should be able to hear the tick of the watch when there is no background noise. The teacher can help the child having such difficulties by seating him or her in the first row in the classroom, standing near by him or her while teaching, and urging him or her to watch the lips of the person who are speaking to him or her. It is always advisable to take hearing defective children to ENT consultants or specialists or to the local hospitals. Now, speech problems. Common speech problems are stammering, stuttering, or lisp or aphasia. Speech problems may be due to either physical or psychological conditions. The physical causes can be malformations of the throat and vocal organs, nasal obstructions, and abnormalities in the structure of the tongue or cleft palate. The details regarding speech problems with respect to types, nature, identification, and remedial measures are discussed in different and in forthcoming chapters. Now, teeth problems. Many children have dirty, unsightly, decayed teeth. Such teeth may affect the facial appearance and speech, which will result in embarrassment for the child, unhappiness, and absenting himself or herself from school. Teachers and parents could talk to children and influence them in keeping their teeth clean and have needed dental care. Now, physical handicaps. Physically handicapped children require special attention of teachers. Crippled children may be having difficulties in using stairs. It is advisable to have senior class students to assist them. It is also desirable that crippled children are provided seat near to the door of the classroom. Games, field trips, and other activities either in school or at home should be organized keeping in view the type and nature of handicaps. Extra help or services other than those that are absolutely necessary should not be offered, as they tend to create dependency and feeling of helplessness in the disabled children. Now, other problems. One can find children with other kinds of problems such as nervous tension, means symptoms such as constantly repeated throat clearing, coughing, shoulder shrugging, neck twisting, restlessness, movements of arms and legs, rheumatic fever, epilepsy, asthma, etc. Such type of children require a detailed diagnosis by doctors and appropriate treatment. Children who are overweight or underweight as compared to normal children should not be a serious concern. If they are otherwise healthy and participating in all curricular and co-curricular activities. But teachers, parents should be concerned with children who are continuously losing weight. Now coming to the social and emotional problems. They are very important. In this, the first one, studying social relationship in the school. That's very important. If individuals are social misfits during the elementary school stage, it is difficult to change at later stages. The social attitudes acquired during the earlier stage of life will affect throughout the life stages. A child needs to experience a mutual feeling of warmth and friendliness with some of the children in his or her group. There must be at least one person who is her or that's very important. One person who is or her Sometimes a child does not do well in examination or gets involved in some activities disturbing the class to get the attention of teacher and friends. When children are not accepted socially, they react in different ways. They become diffident, shy, withdrawn, and even may become aggressive. The child who does not have a friend and is timid may often daydream, stay indoor, stand aloof while other children play. The child who does not have friend or peer group to interact or play may feel that he or she not liked or wanted. Such a child may become rebellious and defiant toward his or her teachers, and he or she may do anything to get the attention of other children and teachers. Parents who do not allow their children to invite their friends, or parents who are ambitious and always want their children to lead in the class at the cost of fun and friends, will often come in the way of social progress of children. Families where there is a constant nagging, bickering, and quarreling among members may hamper the child's social progress. When parents compare the child with his or her brother or sister who is more gifted or talented, the child may feel insecure. The child who is not appreciated and accepted at home may become timid, withdrawn, and afraid of larger groups. Physical appearance makes a lot of difference to me. I mean, a lot of difference which are appeared to many children in making friends. Teachers may have to tell the children about the advantages of neatness, cleanliness, and pleasing appearance in winning friends. Physical abnormality may become a disadvantage to many children socially. However, some physically handicapped children are very popular with their peer groups. Friendships are generally based on similarity of interests, abilities, or socio-economic background of children. A child who is slow learner or one who is gifted or talented or one who is coming from low socio-economic background may find it difficult to meet others on common level. Identifying the isolates. In any group, one can find a few children who are accepted and liked by their classmates. Few children who are actively rejected and disliked by many, and few who are simply ignored by everybody. But the child who is disliked or rejected will not be aware of the reasons for rejection. Teacher can identify children who take part in all school activities and also those children who are always left out. However, it may be difficult for teachers to identify such children who are not so obviously chosen or rejected. Teacher can make use of sociometric devices to identify stars, populars, isolates, and cliques in a given group. Teacher should allow a child to sit next to his or best friend on occasions like his or her birthday or friend's day, etc. This will help in overcoming many problems. Studies have indicated a direct relationship between social adjustments and scholastic achievement. If the teacher's responsibility to try and help isolated children to gain acceptance in the group. An understanding look, a smile, and a friendly pat from the teacher will have a positive effect on children. The disliked or rejected can be helped by making them aware of the reasons and also planning and implementing some remedial programs such as making groups consisting of disliked or rejected and popular children for various work such as assignment during school day programs. Now the third point is aggressive behavior. Aggressive behavior will become positive when it takes the form of ambition, initiative, enterprise, and self confidence. It will be negative when aggressive behavior takes the form of hostility, resentment, and hatred. Teachers and parents should make attempts to promote positive forms of aggressive behavior. Aggression is a natural, instinctive trait that is necessary to a certain degree. A child who is bold, persistent, takes initiative without permission, and sometimes resists authority may develop to be a stronger and dynamic personality. Whereas a child who is quiet, gentle, does not quarrel, who has the admiration and approval of teachers and parents may not acquire the qualities to become a leader. Rigid discipline, unreasonable demands, too much pressure to learn faster than he or she is capable of learning. Tendency among parents and teachers to find fault with the child's creative efforts or imposing things on children. Overprotection at home or not getting attention at home and school work which is too difficult etc may result in child's hostility, tension, nervousness, rebellion, temper tantrums, withdrawals, indifference, and other undesirable reactions. I repeat: nervousness, rebellion, temper, tantrums, withdrawal, indifference, and other undesirable reactions. Hence, parents and teachers should try to understand the probable causes for their children's aggressive behavior. Studies have found suppression and repression of anger, fear, hate, jealousy, and other emotions to be closely related to asthma, arthritis, stomach ulcers, high blood pressure, heart disease, pains in the back, neck, and shoulders, and other physical elements. Teachers and parents should help the children to release their emotions by playing with dolls. Children need many opportunities at school and home to sing, to play outdoor games, to use finger paints, and to express their feelings through puppets, rhymes, and dramatics. Ample opportunities should be provided for children to play. Play has an important role in the development of the child. So, these are very important points to be remembered. I mean, what are the problems? Now, providing conducive environment. Children generally encounter problems that are of concern to the teacher and parents. Many of these problems arise due to the non-availability of healthy and conducive environment at school and home for children's normal growth and development. Children's problems like no one listened to me, I wish I had more friends, I am afraid of some things. Also, one can often hear teachers and parents making statements about children. The common ones are the following. Let us see from the parents' side. Always makes me angry. I'm not going to let these kids suffer like I did. If only someone could help me to keep out of trouble. And from teacher's side, fights all the time. I cannot take any work from him or her. I cannot spend all my time with these slow children. Parents do not show any interest in them. Now, the school environment. Here, the first point is teacher's personality. The teacher's personality affects students' behavior, their relations with each other, and their attitude towards learning. Children gradually adopt their teacher's ideas, whether they are desirable or not. If the teacher is friendly and courteous, he or she stimulates thoughtfulness, helpfulness, and consideration in the children. A good learning situation depends largely upon satisfactory interpersonal relationships, and hence the teacher's personality is vital. A teacher, like anyone else, responds differently to different persons. It is important, therefore, that the teacher be flexible enough to function effectively with all children, regardless of their appearance, age, sex, intelligence, socioeconomic status, and behavior traits. All children, especially the very young ones who are getting their first concepts of school life, deserve to have pleasant, friendly teachers who instill in them a love for learning. Now, pupil teacher relations. Effective teaching involves thorough planning and organization of learning materials, interesting and challenging presentation, teaching methods that are suitable for the children in the class, and good techniques of classroom management. Problems of motivating children, creating interest, seeing children participation, and providing for individual differences never develop in classrooms where there are wholesome pupil teacher relationship. Classroom environment. Physical features of the classroom should be pleasant and conducive to learning. Apart from proper lighting, ventilation, and placement of furniture that are basic, there are other essentials. Teachers should provide for attractive surroundings like bulletin boards, exhibits, charts, globes, maps, and other intellectual stimuli. Teachers should make a conscious effort to be more positive in their approach to make the classroom an attractive place. Teachers' sensitivity to children's needs and problems. Let us see. One of the most important characteristics of a good teacher is the ability to identify children's problems and needs. When children are comfortable or at ease with the teacher, they can give their full attention to learning. The good teacher does not place emphasis only upon academic achievement, but recognizes and appreciates many other types of abilities and leadership qualities in children. When teachers are sensitive to the needs of children, they are quick to notice the ones who seem unable to excel in anything, who are afraid to talk in front of a group, who are too easily discouraged, or who are consistently inattentive in class. All teachers need to know how children grow and develop and to be familiar with the typical behaviors of each age level. Teacher who knows something about the factors that have influenced the lives of children are better prepared to accept them without reacting adversely to their undesirable behavior. If the teacher knows that child's annoying attention getting behavior springs from the need for attention, that his or her daydreaming is really an escape from unpleasant or intolerable situations, he or she may find some way of relieving the underlying cause of the trouble. At least the teacher is expected to be more patient, sympathetic, and understanding. Now, let us see home environment. A statement has been made that children bring their families to school. When children arrive in school, they bring with them the values, the culture, and the language of their family. They tend to reflect the emotional and physical health of that family. The first point, parents as teachers and guidance workers. Here, the responsibility of teaching and guiding children before they reach school is rests with the parents. Even after the child enters the school, he or she still depends much more time under the direction of parents than in school. Obviously, the parents are extremely important in determining the directions of the growth and the kind of a person who into which the child will develop. The impact that the parents and the home have had upon the child before entering school is clearly affected. Generally, parents perform the role of teachers at the preschool stage. When the child enters school, he or she has acquired about 5 years of intensive education. Whether it is good or bad depends to great extent upon how parents have performed this role. From here on, the education of the child is a cooperative underlying by the school, the parents, and the community. It must be based on a sound understanding of the growth and development of the children. Children continue to follow the patterns of behavior, good or bad, which they have learned in their homes. If their early experiences have helped them learn to like and trust people, they will be self confident and outgoing in their contacts with others outside the home. If they have been raised in an environment that has provided a wide variety of experiences and responsibilities and the freedom to express themselves, they are more likely to be cooperative, considerate, resourceful, and self reliant. On the other hand, children from unhappy, inadequate homes are almost certain to show the effects in undesirable relationships outside the home. Child whose parents are overcritical, dictatorial, and demanding of great accomplishment are likely to feel uncared and insecure. If children are victims of overprotective mothers, They usually react by becoming either bossy and dominating or timid and withdrawn. When parents are quarrelsome or nervous, the children learn to act in the same way. When the child's need to feel loved, respected, important, and successful has not been met at home, he or she will try in one way or another to satisfy it elsewhere. Now, coming to the factors, home factors influencing the child's behavior. First point, sibling relationship within the family. It seems to affect the school adjustment of the child. The only child sometimes makes abrupt adjustment when he or she enters school. He or she has not had the competition of brothers and sisters in the home and must learn to give and take with peer groups outside the home. This may sometimes cause a teacher to overestimate his or her real ability because of the tendency to judge children against adult standards and models of behavior. Now, the next point, children from large families usually, this is the second point, children from large families usually lack the material advantage of those of similar families. Disturbing or withdrawing behavior in the classroom may be a pointer to this effect. On the other hand, they may have gained experiences in working with others. They may have learned to share and assume responsibility, and they may have learned to take initiative. Third point, variations in ability among members of the family. This may result in behavior problems. The child who is compared with a sibling in intelligence, physical qualities, sports, etc., may consciously receive the partial treatment of the parents. Fourth point, adults in home, grandparents, aunts, etc., may be included in the adult population of the home. The grandparents representing a generation different from that of parents may have correspondingly different methods of child rearing. The child may suffer due to these differences. Fifth point, parental relationship, physical and emotional distance. Parents may travel to earn their livelihood for shorter, extended periods depending upon the nature of their occupation. Children may thus not be able to see them every day. Some parents are on their shifts and the family may get together as a unit only on holidays. Emotional distance may vary with the family and with the members of the family, but unlike physical distance, it may vary in qualitative sense. Physical distance may come in the way of parent-child relationships. Now, sixth point, parents' expectations of the child. Parental attitude towards the child, explicitly or implicitly indicated, probably from the greatest single influencing factor in shaping the child's behavior pattern. Children of very young parents or of parents well above the child bearing years face different environmental problems. All children, in some respect, become a means of realizing unfulfilled family ambition or for maintaining and developing standards already achieved. Many factors like socioeconomic level, siblings and adults within the home, parents' attitude, ability of the child, and parental expectations influence the child development. Let us see home school relationship. Home and school are very important, that play very important role. The home and the school are two major agencies that influence the child's development. If they work together and there is mutuality of understanding, the child will profit. If the home is unwilling or unable to cooperate in working with the problems, the school faces a difficult time. If they work together and there is a mutuality of understanding, as I told a couple of seconds ago, the child will profit. When children have problems and are being studied by school, invariably the home must be brought into the picture. It seems that the better understanding of the teacher as of the use of the time spent away from school, the better understanding the teacher will have of the child in school. Parents and teachers should know each other as human beings with feelings, interests, and abilities, and not as impersonal names. Both are interested in the success of the child. Working together as a team, they are much more likely to assure that success. Here, the first point is the functions of home school relations. The major function of the home school relations then is to provide an opportunity for parents and teachers to work jointly for the welfare of the children, to help both parents and teachers to know more about the children with whom they are concerned. One should try to answer certain questions. Some of these are what are the characteristics of different age groups? How do individual children get along with their classmate at school? What is their relationship within the family? Some of these questions to be answered by parents, while others are better answered by the teachers. Parent teacher association meetings, school and home visits, and working together on school functions help teachers and parents become better acquainted and able to communicate with one another. Parent teacher conference is one of the best means of promoting feeling of goodwill in the home school relationship. Second one, that is very one of the practice that always practice in the school, that is report card. Report card, the marks on report card do not always convey the messages that the teacher intends or the result that he or she hopes for. Generally, report cards is used by parents as a means of comparing the child's performance with the neighbor's children, which ultimately results in the punishment or reward to the child. Let me to repeat. It's a very important point to be noted. Generally, report cards is used by parents as a means of comparing the child's performance with the neighbor's children, which ultimately results in the punishment or reward to the child. Parents should be helped by teachers to interpret and use the information for discussing strengths and weakness of children so that they can plan together for helping the child in a weak areas. If report card indicates unsatisfactory progress, report card should be supplemented by a letter. The letter should begin with a positive comment about a subject he or she has done well, followed by suggestions for improving in other areas. Derogatory remarks and unfavorable comments in the report card may destroy the possibility of good relations between school and home. This is very important to be kept in mind. I repeat, derogatory remarks and unfavorable comments in report card may destroy the possibility of good relations between school and home. So we have studied needs and problems, and how to provide the guidance, what are the parents problems, what are the school and home relationships, and physical and health and socio emotional aspects. It is important that both the teachers and parents should make all efforts to provide conducive environment for the normal development of the children. Hope you have understood the concept what you have discussed so far. The 1 hour I have taken your valuable time to convince you people regarding the guidance and the problems of the children, how to overcome, and measures and different aspects of guidance. So we'll wind up here. Be positive in thinking. Let us fight against COVID 19. Be safe, be safe, and be positive. Thank you. Thank you and all. Hope for the good day. Thank you.